operational positions or operational titles that are meant for folks in operational positions. Individual, but the muddy challenging for me as well. So ask Council. From what I understand, this particular person or people who would do that role are or a little closer to reality would be really helpful to me. I'll stop there. Thank you.
All right. Yeah. That's Exhibit F. Right.
Sorry, Council President. Also, Exhibit C.
Pardon?
Exhibit C as well.
Exhibit D?
C as in cat.
C.
C as in cat.
So they want assurances that the exhibits are going to be changed, not just the working titles. So, okay, so let me restate that. So move the staff recommendation with rejecting the updates to the working titles for 2111, 2153, 2112, 2127, and eliminate the corresponding changes in exhibits C as in cat, F as in Frank, G as in George, and H as in Howard. And eliminate the references in section 2.1 and section 10. So I think that is now the universal. Changes of every place that changes. And it's still the core thing that Councilmember Von Wolpert wanted, to make sure that every place that those would show up are also eliminated. We have a concern by one of the council members. I don't know, Coda, do you want, since this comes from the mayor's office, or whoever wants to respond to eliminating those changes at this time?
That's fine, yes. Understanding that we're limited by the charter, we need to get this done today. We're fine with those amendments. Okay.
So we'll pause briefly while the city clerk's office. Now, the seconder hasn't.
Well, I guess I just have one question, because, I mean, we're sort of workshopping the salary ordinance on the fly, and I want to be very thoughtful about doing that. Is there anything about the changes that are in front of us in terms of not changing the working titles and making the corresponding changes in those other sections that changes anything about anybody's job currently? In other words, if we do what isn't, does anything change for any particular individual by making the change that is in front of us? Or does everybody stay exactly the same right now? If everybody in the city, their situation today will be the same as their situation tomorrow,
Yes.
if we adopt this,
Yes.
then I'm fine with it. If this somehow changes things for somebody at the city, I would want to know that.
Yeah, correct, Councilmember. It does not change anything for folks in their positions currently. That was the nature of this item as well. It was a cleanup item, really, but adds no additional benefits and does not change the status quo for folks right now.
Okay, thank you. Okay, then I'm fine with it.
Okay, thank you. The city clerk's still working on this, so we'll go next to Councilmember Von Wolpert.
Thank you. I too am trying to figure out exactly what we're doing, but I appreciate you, Council President and Council President Pro Tem, because that's what I was trying to do. So thank you for catching that and including it in. And now I feel that that was what I was trying to say. So I appreciate you. Thank you.
never make the assumptions that somebody will follow through at every step of the way. Councilmember Foster.
I guess first I want to say I appreciate my colleagues' efforts to meet what I guess we are hearing is the call of the charter. However, especially for me, as we are dealing with the issues that we are dealing with, I use the word accountability quite a bit. And I feel that I have to continue to take my position to not support this because I am still hearing confusion. And I think if we are going to continue to talk about accountability from this dais, at some point, we have to hold those accountable. And unfortunately today, that would be the staff that is in front of us today. And so I am going to continue with my position to not support this. But I will say, as we are trying to improve city processes, meeting expectations of the public, as we talk about public trust and transparency, I think these types of instances are what erodes those discussions and that public trust. And so I will pause there, and I will not be supporting this. I will have my office fall back to as whatever gets passed to make sure we see what's corrected, so that we can continue to look at this and review this as it will have to go through a second read and as we deal with the budget. But today, just on principle alone, we on this dais did not create this. It sounds as if each office has provided the time to city staff to go through the briefings and to try to do this with the size of organization and potential implications. I'm just not comfortable, Council President. So thank you.
Fair enough, sir. We'll go to Councilmember Campbell.
Did the HR department present this, type this up and present it, make slides, et cetera?
Yes, the HR department, along with several departments, it's a collective group that we work on, the Salary Ordinance Committee. There's representatives of several departments that provide input, but it is the mayor's proposal, and so HR takes the lead on that.
And then this stuff that you just passed out to us right as the council meeting began is different than the stuff that we were given a few days before the council meeting online to go over?
There's only a few changes, and those are the ones that we highlighted with regard to the title changes.
You know, it's so confusing, even just the title changes, because you have 3 titles in there, not just 2. It's not like saying changing this one to that one. Changing this one, which actually is this one, changing it to this one, makes it very confusing. You know about the KISS method, keep it simple, stupid. This is not simple. And especially at the last minute to get whatever this is and to try to figure out how does this change from this and how is that different from what's online and stuff we've already went over in the briefing, how is that different and what is, you know, it's just, this is huge. Look at this ordinance, look at how long, how many pages. It has annual leave, it has life insurance, it has everything in it. I didn't expect this, I just expect some title changes.
Heard, Councilmember, and fully recognize the late additions, the late edits, and how the position that puts you in the council in. But understanding how major and sizable this ordinance actually is, being able to move forward with some portions of it today, I think is the best move. We'll revisit the items that were removed through the amended motion at a later date. But I think proceeding today with some form of this is most beneficial.
Thank you, Council President.
All right, thank you, Councilmember Campbell. We'll go back to Councilmember Campillo.
Thank you very much, Council President. Mr. Brady, the charter also doesn't have any suggestion on what happens if we don't introduce it by tomorrow. So what happens if we don't introduce it by tomorrow?
Well, we'd be in uncharted territory, let's say. I take your point, but Charter Section 290 just contemplates that it will be introduced, it will be passed today and transmitted to the mayor for his consideration.
Okay.
You're right. It doesn't say what would happen if it didn't. Yeah.
So the sentence you just said there, it's contemplated that it will just pass today. That's exactly the approach of staff, is that they just contemplated this would be passed today. I think we have some ideas at Rules Committee about charter change that might want to fix some of these dates up so that we don't get caught off guard like this. That said, when the city governing document says the council shall introduce, that's not may not decide upon, that is a order from the voters of the city of San Diego that we shall introduce it by tomorrow. So though I share some of the, not confusion, but the feeling of strangeness of last second changes, the charter says shall. So I feel compelled that I have to vote yes, and different branches of government know that. So maybe we should fix that too. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Campillo. Your attorney perspective is always appreciated, as is Councilmember Von Wilpert's. Councilmember Elo Rivera.
Apologies, Council President. I wanted to thank my colleagues for the work that was done, and you for making adjustments to get to a place where we can move forward as the charter requires, and also address some of the concerns that we had. I also, just for the sake of transparency, I do think that there's an important conversation to be had, again, given the context of the budget situation that we're in, where we are saying that every dollar matters. We are telling our residents that and what we ask for from them. We are telling our workers that and what we are asking them to sacrifice. That there needs to be a conversation about how those at the upper ranks of the organization, those who are being compensated the best, there needs to be some conversations about where there's room for some trimming there. And regardless of who is getting a new automobile allowance or not, I want to be transparent that that's going to be part of the budget conversation. That there are folks who are making or slated to be eligible to make quite a bit of a pretty good salary, a pretty healthy salary, who would still be eligible for those benefits. And again, in a time when we're asking for sacrifice from residents, we're asking for sacrifice from folks who do very, very difficult jobs and barely earn enough to live in the city, if that. That's going to be part of the conversation, at least from my end, when the budget conversation kicks up. And I just wanted to be transparent about that. But thank you again for the work on this. Thanks for my colleagues for paying as close of attention as they did to the details here. That's it.
Thank you, Councilmember Elo Rivera. Just to kind of wrap up before I call for the vote, and the motion is now up on the screen. I want to thank the city attorney for adding some additional language to make sure that if we didn't identify everything, that there's a closing statement that makes sure that it does get picked up. And I know the city attorney will look at it very closely to make sure the I's are dotted and T's are crossed, so to speak, on that. So, you know, I don't often talk like this, and I normally defer to my colleagues to kind of kick off the conversation. And that's what my staff wanted me to do, but I knew this was going to go a little bit south. And I just frankly think I'm better than everybody else at doing this kind of nimble repositioning in listening to you all very carefully and what the tenor of your comments are. A member of the public this morning made an interesting comment about my behavior last week and said, I saw a lot of fear in your face. That wasn't fear last week, that was anger. So in case there's any confusion, this is anger in my face today. You're amazing individuals, you're working really hard, these are incredibly complex things. But for the council to do its job, the thing I always worry about is a good idea failing or not getting the support because of how it was introduced. I think you all know that, and I really don't need to sound like I'm lecturing you. You know that, but as council president, I feel like I have to make that. We can do better. We can do things. We won't always get 9-0 votes, but we can do better. We can make less confusion by the public because perception is as important as the reality. So, and this clearly is falling victim to that. We're trusting that this will get us to where we need to be. The budget will come out tomorrow, probably reflects all these changes were anticipated, so everybody should be prepared for that. The budget probably will reflect some of these things, but we get 2 bites at the apple, the final budget, as well as the second reading of the salary ordinance. So we're all particularly challenged, and we'll go back to Councilmember Whitburn.
Thank you, Council President. I'm just looking at the language of the motion that is in front of us, and I will leave it to the attorneys, but I just want to make sure that when we say strike reference to those 4 classifications, so on and so forth, and then as well as any other corresponding references in the salary ordinance that exhibits, that doesn't have the effect of eliminating those positions.
It's just eliminating the working titles. You're not eliminating the positions.
Okay, well, as long as that's on the record and everybody's comfortable with it, then fine.
Very good point, Councilmember Whitburn. It should reference to the working titles, as Mr. Brady noted, so that it's clear we're not eliminating those classifications.
Okay, so let's go ahead and make that change
Okay.
then. Thank you.
We got a lot of sharp-eyed individuals on the dais today, so thank you all. This is not the way how we want to do legislation, but it's all important. Do you want to come up? All right. Cooler heads got together and responded to Councilmember Whitburn's concerns with the changes that you see in front of us. It looked like everybody from the city attorney's office to HR to the city clerk are comfortable with that. Councilmember Whitburn, are you? Councilmember, I want to make sure you're good with the changes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. With that, seeing nobody else on the lights, we have a motion there as shown on the screen. Clerk, please call the roll.
I started the voting system. Please cast your vote. That passes 7-1 with Councilmember Foster voting no and Councilmember Moreno absent.
All right. Let me extend my appreciation to my colleagues for working through this on the dais, to HR personnel, everybody that worked so hard to bring this item forward. I know there's a lot of work involved in that, so thank you very much on that. So, and to the public who was here primarily for a different reason, thank you for your patience. So with that, clerk, please introduce item S503.
Thank you, Council President. Item S503 is amendments to the rules of council for consistency with State Senate Bill number 707 and recordings of closed session. This item is not subject to the mayor's veto. If you'd like to speak on this item, please be sure to submit your speaker slip to the front of the room in the clear box, as well as raise your hand by pressing *9 or the raise your hand icon. Thank you, Council President.
All right. With that, I think I recognize my staff, but please introduce yourself for the record and let us know how much time you need.
Thank you, Council President and City Council members. My name is Abby Reuter. I am Senior Policy Advisor to Council President Joe LaCava. I will need 8 minutes for this presentation.
All right. Begin when you're ready.
State Bill 707 was signed into law in 2025 and modified the Ralph M. Brown Act, which governs local legislative bodies and the public's right to attend and participate in local public meetings. Local changes to comply with SB 707 must be effective by July 1st, 2026. This presentation will focus on 2 provisions of the Brown Act modified by SB 707. The first is the same time allotment for virtual and in-person speakers, and the second is the policy on disruption of telephonic or internet service. Rule 2.6 and Rule 2.7 of the Rules of Council are proposed to be modified, and a new Rule 2.15 is proposed to be created. The changes to Rule 2.6 add in language for both virtual and in-person speakers to group themselves into organized presentations. The modifications are intended to be minimal to provide flexibility for the clerk and council administration to adjust after the July 1st deadline based on public feedback, staffing capacity, and technology. To facilitate organized presentations, a process is proposed. Recognizing that it is difficult for public speakers to gather the correct number of speakers with our current meeting management process, council agendas will include a notice indicating whether public comment for that information or discussion item will be 1 minute, 1 minute 30 seconds, or 2 minutes. Implementation of this for each council committee will be at the discretion of the chair of that committee, as meeting management is the purview of the council president for city council meetings and committee chairs for committee meetings. Organized presentations will be taken before individual public comment and will be limited to a maximum of 15 minutes or less. This responds to the feedback from the public and committee, which was heard at the February Rules Committee meeting. Those who wish to have an organized presentation, in person or virtual, would need to fill out a form provided by the Office of the City Clerk at least 24 hours before the start of a regularly scheduled council or committee meeting as posted on the meeting agenda. For special meetings that are posted less than 48 hours in advance of the meeting, the form would need to be submitted 18 hours before the start of the meeting. The 24-hour submission window strikes a balance between providing sufficient administrative time for the clerk or council administration to facilitate the presentation, with providing time for the public to coordinate who would be part of the organized presentation. Electronic presentation materials intended to be displayed during the organized presentation would be due at least 2 hours prior to the start of the meeting as posted on the meeting agenda. This will allow for the clerk or council administration staff to upload the electronic file and scan for cyber threats prior to display during the meeting and troubleshoot if there are any technical issues. Separating the two submission timeframes is intended to provide the public as much preparation time as possible. Electronic files would not be shared in advance with city staff, council offices, or the public, and presentation materials are not required for any organized presentation. The group may opt to do an organized presentation without any additional audio or visual aids. The organized presentation form will need to be filled out properly, and every member of the group must be present, whether that be all in person for an in-person organized presentation or all virtually for an organized presentation delivered virtually during their time to speak. City clerk and council administration will work towards allowing mixed attendance, a combination of group members in person and virtual, as technology and staffing allow. If some members of the group are not present at the time of the presentation, the group's time will be reduced proportionally. This process would go beyond Brown Act requirements and also apply to committee meetings for consistency and clarity. Additionally, this item proposes a change to Rule 2.7 related to non-agenda public comment. This would clarify that the 16-minute maximum per issue applies separately for in-person and virtual speakers. If there are 8 or more speakers on a specific issue in person, the maximum time for that issue is 16 minutes, which is 2 minutes per speaker up to 8 speakers. And this is being clarified to have a separate maximum of 16 minutes for virtual speakers on that issue. Ceding of time would continue to be prohibited for non-agenda public comment. This item also proposes a new Rule 2.15 to comply with the requirement for a policy on disruption to telephonic or internet service. It clarifies the difference between a disruption prior to or during closed session versus open session. If the disruption affects a public meeting, council would recess for an hour or until service is restored, whichever is quicker. City staff will make good faith efforts to restore service, including troubleshooting platform or teleconferencing software, resetting or replacing audiovisual equipment, attempting alternative connection methods, contacting necessary support staff or service providers, and switching to backup equipment or platforms if available. And these restoration efforts will be documented. If not restored after 1 hour, council may either adjourn the meeting or make findings to vote and continue in open session. For efficiency, this item proposes to include amendments to Rule 8.4, which currently requires transcription of closed sessions except those related to personnel matters. The Brown Act does not require closed sessions to be transcribed, and it is very costly to have a court reporter attend and transcribe these meetings. The proposed amendments will provide for recording closed sessions, allowing for efficiency and eliminating this costly requirement. We provided an informational presentation to Rules Committee in February, and the committee voted to forward the item to full council in March. However, these modifications would not take effect until July 1st, 2026. The requested action today is to adopt an ordinance amending Chapter 2, Article 2, Division 1 of the San Diego Municipal Code relating to the rules of council. Thank you, and I'm available for any questions.
All right, thank you for the presentation and all the work that you put into this, as well as Clerk Fuentes and her team, Tyler Birch and his team, and the City Attorney's Office in responding to the state law changes and updating our rules of council. So with that, Clerk, please proceed with public testimony on S503.
Thank you, Council President. Before I begin with the public testimony here, I would just like to note that this item did receive 4 comments in favor and 0 comments in opposition via our e-comment form, which have been distributed to the council. We have quite a number of speakers here in council chambers, so we'll be going down to a minute each. If we can have Al Del Mastro, Jeffrey Huter, and Victoria Labruzzo, please come up to the front. Al Del Mastro, you can come to the microphone. Sure. Jeffrey Huter, can you begin?
Yeah, thank you, council members. We appreciate the work that was done by the council president's office and the clerk trying to preserve what we think is an important ability to testify in front of the council and make organized presentations. So we think these are workable regulations. The only thing that we would like to see potentially as we get used to the new methodology of things is to have me be able to speak here, for example, but have our time seaters be virtuals. Otherwise, I would have to speak virtually, and I think it's a better experience for both sides of the dais to have as many people be able to come in chambers. It's also, I think, a matter of respect. If you turn it the other way, asking everybody to come down here, council meetings often run past 2 hours, so you're sort of forced to park in the parking structure. It's $18 to come here. Places like Sandag actually validate and make the process a lot easier, so maybe we could try and do things like that as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Victoria, you have several people ceding you time. If they can please raise their hand. Deborah Suisa, as I call your name, thank you. Deborah Suisa, Bill Crooks, Robert Montana, Susan Ward, Kelly Tremling, Eric Edelman. I don't see anybody. Eric Edelman? No? Thomas Marquez, Susan Baldwin, Patricia Law. Patricia Law? Thank you. Felicity Sanoski, David Swarens, Bob Link, David Motti, Dana Givet, Yvonne Jones, and Matt Driver. Thank you. You'll have 15 minutes. Please proceed.
Okay, thank you very much. Good afternoon, President LaCava and council members. As most of you know by now, my name is Victoria Labruzzo, and I'm the chair of the CPC, Community Planners Committee. We are the umbrella organization for your planning groups. The community planning groups are comprised of, I don't know if you know this, but over 400, probably close to 500 board members, if you count up all the community members that are elected board members through the city. Thank you for the, next slide. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today. I was diligent in distributing our correspondence for a seat at the table to your offices over the past few months. And you should have received letters from your district CPGs that have recommended support for a seat at the table as well. I would also like to thank President LaCava's staff and the city clerk's office for their work in accommodating SB 707 and recognize the balancing act required with virtual access. Our hope is that the following information will also improve and potentially alleviate some of the administrative tasks for the city clerk's office. Next slide. So why does a seat at the table tie directly with SB 707? Quoting directly from our state lawmakers, SB 707 presents an opportunity to strengthen our governments and empower community members to be engaged. Ultimately, we aim to create robust public meetings and increase participation across the state. Because a seat at the table advances the same objective as SB 707, it is well suited for consideration as part of today's procedure. Next slide. Let's identify the problem. Going back in time to 2013, when President LaCava was Chair LaCava of the CPC, he put together a presentation about CPGs and CPC. One of the things that stood out to me in his presentation was that he recognized that CPGs had been mischaracterized as gatekeepers. And as you so eloquently put it in your past presentation, CPGs are not gatekeepers. Rather, they are the recognized link between communities and City Hall. Next slide. In fact, today's diverse CPGs fully acknowledge the city's goals and the need for affordable housing and thoughtful growth. Their role is not to oppose development, but to ensure that development aligns with adopted community plans and infrastructure realities. Next slide. So, what does the San Diego General Plan say? It happens to be very specific about the reality of planning groups, which are laid out in this slide. But putting this in a nutshell, the general plan ratifies community participation through planning groups. That means CPGs are not just a courtesy. They are part of the city's planning framework. Next slide. But why are CPGs different than the general public? Simply put, because community planning groups were established and recognized by you, the City Council. Community planning groups are democratically elected members that operate under structural procedures involving the Brown Act, council policy, and adopted bylaws. Their positions reflect deliberation and votes taken in noticed public meetings distinguishing them from all other public comment. Next slide. We sent a seat at the table to DSD as they provide meeting procedures for the Planning Commission. While we appreciate that Director Lowe took the time to respond, the response she provided frames the issue that the public, including CPGs, already received the same amount of speaking time as project applicants, so no change is needed. Director Lowe's misstep in her analysis is including CPGs with the general public for purposes of public comment. Next slide. In fact, the city's planning groups should be recognized for who they are, and that they have the ability to present their deliberated recommendations in a structured and predictable way. Currently, planning group recommendations are included in the staff reports when going before Planning Commission and the City Council. This is represented in the graphic on the left side of the screen, the tangled funnel. However, comments about that vote are often not conveyed by staff to the deciding body and can even be tangled into the staff's recommendation without true context. It is imperative that the community's comments are untangled from city staff reports. This is represented by the graphic on the right side of the screen, the untangled ecosystem. This shows direct communication by each interested party to the deciding body. Without this process, it's clear that we are missing our seat at the table. Next slide. Right now, structural imbalance is the reality. At City Council, project presenters receive structured presentation time and engage with decision makers. In contrast, CPGs are not provided with equitable representation in city meetings without going through a convoluted process to get that representation, even though CPGs are part of the city's own framework. Next slide. Today's proposed changes, including organized presentations to meeting procedures required by SB 707, do not solve the inequity problem as it applies to planning groups. As far as preparation, deliberation, narrative control, and presentation tools, those boxes are checked for applicants and city staff. For CPGs, the same is not true. This framework disproportionately limits the community's ability to provide intelligently organized input, particularly on complex land use matters, where impacts are significant and where community recommendations require explanation and response to inquiry by the deciding board or deciding body. A fair process requires equal access to the tools of deliberation and not just a stopwatch. Next slide. I want to make sure that CPC is not presenting the problem without the solution. But before we go there, let's talk about the gymnastics of current community planning group participation. Currently, CPGs must rely on seated public comment time. At the previous Rules Committee last month, once I arrived, I knew I had at least 7 time-seaters, which at best gave me 14 minutes if President LaCava provided 2 minutes each. My presentation was close to 10 minutes, so I thought it would be okay, until right before public comment started and we were informed of the 1-minute public comment time limit, which meant leaving out multiple slides of information, and I had to adjust my presentation on the fly. Meanwhile, the other presenters were allowed to choose their presentation time and converse back and forth with committee members. This is a perfect illustration as to why a seat at the table is critical to our communities. In the updated staff report, I did notice one proposed change that would require advance notice of the public comment duration. That is a positive step for general public comments. But the City Council also needs to understand the unique tension placed on community planning groups. The city's advisory bodies with the desire and expectation to provide structured, meaningful input without any structured, meaningful way to present it. Next slide. The seat at the table proposal is a request for the City Council, its committees, and the Planning Commission to establish formal, structured presentation times for community representatives. Number 1, equivalent substance and time. Grant CPGs equal duration to project proponents on neighborhood-specific items, allowing them to use PowerPoint and present coherent analyses. Number 2, accessible dialogue. Allow CPG presenters to field questions and remain accessible to decision makers for further engagement during the hearing. Number 3, citywide representation. Extend these same procedures to the CPC. Next slide. This modest procedural adjustment simply ensures that the cities recognized CPGs can civilly, respectfully, and productively present their perspective with the same clarity and time afforded to staff and project applicants. It also provides incentives for developers to work with the communities. It provides better and more informed decisions for council members. It increases transparency, and it restores trust in the process. Next slide. So what are we specifically asking for? We are asking for CPC or CPG presentation section in the meeting agendas. On this slide is a simple example of an item presentation order. Our specific requirements would be setting a minimum guaranteed speaking time that checks the box for preparation clarity. Allow decision makers to ask questions of CPG or CPZ presenters, which checks the box for the deliberation process. And allow CPGs to be untangled from staff's narrative, which checks the box for the community having control over its own narrative. Next slide. We believe that this is an important procedural change that is in full alignment with the goals of SB 707. Robust community involvement has been diminished, and the state lawmakers are helping correct that. Amending today's discussion item and adding the structured presentation time for CPGs and CPC is the right course of action. We appreciate your consideration of this important procedural change for your community planning representatives. But before I finish, I do want to provide one more example that just happened last month at the Planning Commission. And why a seat at the table is needed. So the Planning Department recently departed from recognizing CPG as a main community advisory body, most recently at the March 19th Planning Commission meeting. The Mid-City Communities Plan update is currently in review process. I was surprised to learn that the city had created a 16-member working group described as inclusive engagement. However, only 4 of the seats were allocated to the CPGs at 1 seat apiece. The very groups the city's own policies identify as the primary structured voice of the community. Instead of prioritizing CPG input, the city placed them in the minority within a separately appointed group. This shifts community input away from elected, accountable planning groups and towards city staff-controlled structure. One of the planning commissioners even described this approach as disrespectful to the volunteers who serve on our planning groups, and I think that says a lot. Lastly, I want to mention that we would like to thank the late Howard Wayne. He is an important civic leader for his early guidance on this concept, as he was the one that put this into the mind of Linda Vista's planning group, in particular, Felicity. So I want to thank you for your time today, and I hope that you will sincerely consider the planning groups and our voices before you, our city council. Thank you very much.
Al Del Mastro, if you can please come forward.
Hi, my name's Al Del Mastro. I think the real importance of this is that I can remember June of, or July of 2024 when Sean Ela Rivera tried to get rid of virtual comment, and how many people that are limited in the community that are disabled or whatever who couldn't come and participate this way. So I'm all for as much input as possible here, and not having this. Having us cut off from that. I'm glad that that wasn't approved at that time. I remember seeing, it was probably the most embarrassing moment that I ever saw in this committee, is when I saw 250 people here, it was pulling off the agenda, And the first 30 people that shared as Sean was president scolded all 30 people in public. What an embarrassment that was to the city. And to see this go on like that is ugly. That we should be having more open dialect. Anyway, thank you.
I'll start the 5-minute timer going to those participating remotely. Again, it'll be 1 minute each, starting with the original.
Oh my gosh, Joe, you were angry. You were totally fearful. And so in this inverted world, you're going to say that, which means that when you're in anger, you're in fear. Anyway, yeah, it's funny how in an inverted world, people think that encroaching on free speech and putting rules on it gives you more freedom. What a world we live in when that happens. Because it's like freedom of speech is all you need to know. And yet we have all these rules and regulations and policies to come in and, impede on that. All while people say, we want to hear from more of you. I mean, even Joe, you were like, oh my gosh, it was so nice being able to hear like 15 minutes from somebody because we can actually really hear what you're saying. Yet you guys give people a minute saying that you want to, hear from what they have to say. It's just so sad because, you shouldn't be, determining either like, oh, if 8 people want to speak on this, only 8 people can. That means that you're going to limit like just any other item to that amount of people. It's just so ridiculous what you guys do and people call it freedom.
Thank you. Tony, please unmute.
Yes, hello, can you hear me?
Yes, please proceed.
Hi, thank you, City Council. How you doing? I just wanted to speak and comment as the Vice Chair of the Boulevard Planning Group. I want to thank so much the group that presented before us just now and gave the conversation about the CPGs and the difficulty that the public faces in being able to leave a public comment. I was just commenting yesterday in how the last 5 months I've gotten 4 parking tickets just coming down to express my opinions, and they stated it perfectly, how the sandbox is extremely limited, and it really makes it super difficult for people to be able to come in and express themselves and to give public comment and to actually help you all make these decisions that require public input in order to be made. And so I would encourage y'all to develop some type of like a parking return system.
Your time
parking
has concluded. My apologies, Blair Beekman. You can definitely email cityclerk@sandiego.gov. Please proceed, Blair.
Hi, Blair Beekman. Parking validation is the term. Yeah, really good idea. Really good public comment from the first persons. They've been working a lot on that. We're entering a new generation of how to talk about public participation in the process. It's awesome. They're doing really good. Good luck what we can be developing. Good luck that you can have you can work more on the minute 30 ideas of public comment time. This is a perfect time. I think we could have had minute 30 for items. What other things? Oh, I sent you a letter on working on public meeting issues overall this past Thursday. I hope you can review. We could have chosen a path of ending Zoom altogether, and instead we're choosing to continue it. And thank you for that sort of ideas of public accessibility. Good luck. We're working on those concepts and really want to respect it in this post-COVID era. We find good ideas. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is 8813. If you can please unmute. I do see that you're unmuted, but we do not hear you here in council chambers. Not sure if the device that you're speaking into maybe.
Okay.
There you go.
Got it. Yep. Okay, so Gonzalo here. Okay, so first off, I want to start off by acknowledging the positive, which is the expanded language access. That's great. Okay, broader inclusion. So yeah, on the surface, all of this sounds like progress, but this isn't just expanded access. This is control over how the public is allowed to participate. Because when you digitize public comment, you also gain the ability to mute filter, and remove their comments. And that brings me to the most concerning piece is the expanded authority to remove so-called disruptive speakers. But who defines disruptive? Is it someone being loud, or is it someone being uncomfortable to listen to? Because the people who get labeled disruptive are often the ones calling out the conflicts of interest, the corruption, and the lack of transparency in you all. So the ones who actually show up are who this really impacts. And the majority of the public isn't here, so they're
Your time
busy.
has concluded. AD 700, if you can please unmute. The 5-minute timer has also concluded. There are 4 speakers in the queue. No additional speakers will be taken. Please proceed.
Thank you, City Clerk Fuentes. Joy Sunyata, this is absolutely wonderful because this is our world, folks. And we're slowly waking up to the reality that it's happening and that it's exponentially speeding up. So buckle up your seatbelt because this is just the beginning. And Zoom will zoom into the future, and where it will go, we do not know. I'm thrilled that we're going to be able to speak. I don't know what our voices will be in the future and what these new worlds will be like. They're going to be something we can't even see right now. So thank you for this. President LaCava, thank you. Thank you everybody that's on board for this. I'm sure we're going to get 100% vote on this. I guess some people are missing. But in any case, thank you. I'm on board. Love to all.
Thank you. Next is Zoom user. If you can please unmute, and then Kate, Zoom user.
Thanks for taking my call. A perfect example of seat at the table happened just in the last topic you guys had showing, where I would say the city council doesn't even have a seat at the table. It's all done in the backroom deals with the mayor. The mayor throws this thing in front of you guys like you got a seat at the table and say, you either say yes or we have 30 minutes to decide on this. You have to do it now. That's not a seat at the table. That was a backroom deal and live on TV. So anyway, we should have a new amendment to call the mayor like Bozo the Clown or something and refer to the mayor as Bozo. Because once we have these bargaining things for the new budget, it's going to be wild, man. And we could always have the assistant to the mayor give him like a unicycle and a big red nose, so when he comes into the meetings, he could tell the mayor that. Thanks a lot.
And Kate, your final speaker.
Hi, can you all hear me?
Yes, please proceed.
Okay, great. So my name is Kate. I work in District 3 and I'm a resident of District 9. I am a big fan of Senate Bill 707. I think there is tremendous opportunity to enhance public participation in these meetings. I actually would encourage you all to send this back to the city attorney's office today to comply with Senate Bill 707 without unnecessarily burdening public commenters through the professionalization of the public comment process. I believe that community planning groups deserve to have a seat at the table, and they should have a way to comment in these meetings with that sort of dialogue and those sort of identified times. But the practice of ceding time benefits not just citizens, but also city council. It helps us be more effective in our public comments. And I know that the incredibly competent office of the city clerk could figure out how to do same time allotment to cede time across virtual and in-person platforms. Thank you.
Thank you. That does conclude public comment on this item.
All right, thank you, City Clerk. I again want to thank my senior policy advisor, Abby Reuter, for all the work on this, Clerk Fuentes and her team, Tyler Birch and his team that supports us at committee, and the City Attorney's Office for your collaboration in responding to the state law changes. Before I go on with the rest of my comments, I want to respond to several things that were heard. One, the rules of council are only changing what we need to change to respond. SB 707 actually had many more changes that were already embedded in our rules of council. So we didn't even touch that. And the allowance for remote participation was already embedded in our rules of council. Not every agency up and down the state of California allowed remote. They're now required to add remote. I got a little bit of a kick out of the comment about disruption. The disruption is not about what we do about someone disrupting a meeting. It is when we lose contact with either Zoom or City TV, and people that want to participate, just watch or even participate remotely can't. And so there's very specific language. You just can't blow it off and say, hey, we got a quorum, we're just going to keep on with our meeting. Strong language that says this is what you have to do if there is a disruption for those participating remotely. It has nothing to do with behavior in the public meeting. To Mr. Your comment, because I can never remember your name. I'm not going to say it wrong out loud. The splitting is something that we're continuing to entertain. I don't know if folks appreciate actually how big of a lift this is for our city clerk and for our committee consultants to make this fundamental change and do seating of time remotely. So this is the first big step in that process. We'll continue to monitor it to see if technology makes it easier to monitor, but we wanted to give the city clerk something solid they know they could deliver on by July 1st, but we're also continuing to entertain that for the reasons that you said. So we do recognize that. I think I said this at Rules Committee, but for the colleagues that weren't there, there was nothing more effective than throwing back at a council member things they said in the past. So kudos to you for doing that again. 2013 was a much different time. It is prior to the current iteration of 600-24, which fundamentally changed the city's relationship with our community planning groups going forward. And I also want to clarify, accessible dialogue is on the table right now. If some council member wants to ask a question from anybody in the public, you can, I say, Mr. Modi, come up here and talk to me about utility boxes as we did at our working group. So there's nothing to stop that from happening. So that's allowable today. And you brought back a memory from what staff said at the Planning Commission. My very first CPC meeting, where I really didn't know what I was doing, staff was bringing forth the idea of dumping planning groups as the primary vehicle for a community plan update and instituting a committee to do the community plan updates. I'm not going to talk about Mid-City. I'll let my colleague deal with that. But I immediately knew that was wrong. And I spoke up, and people didn't even know who the hell Joe LaCava was back then, but trying to defend planning groups back then. So I think I covered most of the issues that I wanted to. But I appreciate everybody's, a lot of you participated from the very first Rules Committee. As I said, City of San Diego is a leader in many aspects of 707. Other jurisdictions are now having to catch up. While I know some people will complain, I think we do have a robust system for public participation. It does require a little more work. I can tell you how many times I came down here all by myself, and maybe I got a minute or maybe I got 3 minutes to represent my planning group going forward. And again, as you heard, these changes will not take effect to July 1st, which gives our city clerk and our committee consultants time to monitor the feedback and technological progress to identify opportunities for continued further improvement. So I'm going to leave it there and see what my colleagues say, but I will move the staff recommendation. And we'll go next to Council Member Elo Rivera.
Thank you, Council President. Appreciate your work on this. Abby, thank you for all the work you did. Council President, I know you worked closely with the clerk to bring this forward. So thank you for all the effort. As I said before, Rules Committee, my entire time knowing you, you've cared about public participation, the ability for the community to show up and meaningfully weigh in, not just weigh in. It's how we got to know each other. You were just a guy who continuously showed up to support community efforts. So I know that this was done with the intent of obviously abiding by state law, but also doing so in a way that ensures that meaningful public engagement is maintained. So thank you for that. With that, I'm happy to provide a second.
All right, thank you, sir. We'll go next to council member. So we have a motion by myself and a second by council member Elo Rivera. We'll go next to council member Von Wilpert.
Thank you, and thank you for the work to implement the state-required changes. I know it's not easy when the state passes a law and then we have to scramble to implement it. So I appreciate you very much for doing that. And also to our city clerk and all of the deputy and assistant clerks, it is very hard to maintain meeting management with both the online platform and here, and your job is about to be much more challenging. So I just want to appreciate the fact that you are so kind and open and invite people in no matter how hard that's going to be. So thank you for your work on that as well. And thank you also to Victoria Labruzzo and all of the community planning groups for coming down here and not only dedicating your time, but also paying for parking. It is something that we should think about here, now that the city doesn't have any budget deficits, but it is noted. And in terms of the further actions, I know it's not before us today whether or not to include a specified slot for community planning groups, but I definitely am open to that discussion, and I would love to hear. I know the council president, you've done so much work on the council relationship with the planning groups, so I think the point is made, and I would be open to hearing any ideas for the future about how this could be implemented. At the same time, yes, as long as people are here, anyone on this dais can ask anyone in the audience a question, as well. So it doesn't need to be seated at these tables. If anybody is here, we can ask a community member to come up and respond. I don't think we've made that very clear, but that is our current protocol. So, but for today, I know we're only talking about these very specific changes to comply with 707, but I would be more than open to hearing more for future ideas to implement some of these goals. So thank you.
All right, thank you, Councilmember Von Wilpert. We'll go next to Councilmember Campillo.
Thank you, Council President. Similar to that Rules Committee, I'll be in support today, though I'll reiterate my support for the suggestion from the CPGs to have that equal rung in the ladder of communication. I do appreciate that we're working with the City Clerk's office to get the virtual the in-person and virtual mix done correctly, which will alleviate a lot of cost and effort to magnify the voices. And I think that I just need to reiterate to my 5 planning groups in District 7 that we have a close relationship. We have people from my staff at every single meeting and beyond, and other meetings as well. I think that as soon as we are able to get that hybrid and in-person mix, we will be able to functionally get very close to that equal seat in the table. But as my constituents know, I'm more than happy to ask any questions they give me to put in front of me of any applicant or city staff at any time. And I appreciate them for their great efforts. Thank you, Council President, for the good work, and thank you, Ms. Ryder, for your good work on this as well. I'll vote in support.
All right, thank you, Councilmember Campillo. We'll go next to Council President Pro Tem Lee.
Thank you, Council President, and thank you and your team and the City Clerk's team for their work on this. We were just commenting up here about how we get these state bills that get passed with changes, which is wonderful. And from an equity standpoint, I think is actually a significant advancement in trying to offer folks equal time and access. So that should not be understated. But to also recognize that we were uniquely equipped as a city to be able to respond to this, to adjust without making significant changes. I think of how most of the jurisdictions within this county had already eliminated virtual comment post-pandemic, and to try to re-implement a new system must be extremely challenging for many of them. So thank you, City Clerk, for continuing to address these challenges. And I think to that point, I don't think we should underestimate how challenging it is on the City Clerk's end to try to manage both in-person public speakers as well as virtually online, and to add this additional component for group presentations. So what I do appreciate with this update is that we've sought to really strike a balance in how we can allow the public as much time as possible to prepare, to gather the individuals they need to have a presentation ready. And 2 hours is not a lot of time for you to receive some of this and piece all of it together. And so that's just something that I think we all need to acknowledge and that I imagine for the city clerk as we advance in making this even more accessible, that it takes staffing and time to dedicate to make sure it's done in a meaningful way. I think to the point of our community planning groups and the CPC about having a seat at the table, similar to some of my colleagues that have mentioned here, I think what we're going to see, at least in this round of changes, is some better structure to how group presentations are offered. It certainly doesn't answer the full question that has been proposed, and I think that is one that's still challenging logistically to figure out all the nuances of, but I appreciate that that's a conversation that's continuing in some way or another, because I do think we recognize that the CPGs do come oftentimes with feedback on items, how they get their time, how that gets allotted. Again, I think once we have a blend of virtual and in-person, that might help to solve some of that because it will remove one of the most immediate barriers to someone speaking. But having the group presentations up front and even just acknowledging that one of them is going to be the community planning groups or the CPC, I think goes a long ways in helping to recognize where in sort of in the order with the public those presentations come from. So I appreciate the work that's been done on the item today. Happy to support it. Look forward to future discussions to see how we can continue to improve upon the process that we have. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Council President Pro Tem. Not seeing anybody else on the lights, we're having a motion to move the staff recommendation. Motion by myself and a second by Councilmember Elo Rivera. Clerk, please call the roll.
Just when you guys were saying nice things about me. I'll have to redo the vote. My apologies. I've started the vote. Please cast your vote. And that does pass unanimously 8-0 with Councilmember Moreno voting no. Councilmember Moreno voting absent. I really wanted to humble myself. Thank you, Council President.
All right, thank you. And again, thank you everybody that showed up and stuck through a long afternoon. Clerk, please introduce item S507.
Item S507 is the Clean Water SRF loan to the stormwater system for the Choya's Green Infrastructure and Storm Drain Improvements projects. This requires 6 votes pursuant to Charter Section 99. If you are here and like to speak on this item, please be sure to submit your speaker slip to the front of the room in the clear bin. And if you are online, now's the time to raise your hand by pressing *9 or the raise your hand icon. Thank you.
All right, with that, I see staff has seated themselves. Please introduce yourself for the record. Let us know how much time you need.
Thank you, Council President, and thank you, Council Member. My name is Kevin Warner. I am the Financing Coordinator with the Department of Finance. We'll need 5 minutes.
All right, when you're ready.
I appreciate it. The item seeks council approval to enter into a Clean Water State Revolving Fund financing for the Choya's Green Infrastructure and Storm Drain Improvements projects. For background, the Clean Water State Revolving Fund, or SRF as it's commonly known, offers low-cost loans to help local agencies construct water projects affordably throughout the state. The program is administered by the State Water Resources Control Board. The program offers low interest rate loans and favorable repayment terms. The city regularly submits applications for standalone projects that meet those requirements. And the state has started capping loans at $50 million per project. The Choya's Green Infrastructure and Storm Drain Improvement projects consist of El Cerrito and Rolando Park Storm Drain and Green Infrastructure Group 1012, all in the Choya's watershed. This project improves water quality and flood resistance in the Choya's watershed with 6 new modular wetland systems. It replaces aging storm drain pipes and installs 3,500 feet of new reinforced concrete drains. This project is 100% design complete and is being finalized for construction. The estimated cost for this project is $23.8 million, and it's due to be bid at the end of calendar year 2026 with start of construction in 2027 and finish in calendar year 2029. The Storm Drain Revenue Fund collects approximately $5.7 million annually from the storm drain fees. And the Storm Drain Revenue Fund will be pledged for the Choya's projects. The Revenue Fund is also pledged to repay the South Mission Beach Clean Water SRF loan that the city did and completed in fall of 2024. The state has offered a $22 million loan plus a potential $5 million in principal forgiveness. Principal forgiveness meaning more like a kind of like a grant, and could bring the total financing to $27 million. The $5 million in forgiveness decision is expected in late fiscal year 2026 or early 2027 from the State Water Resources Control Board. With the current storm drain revenue fund capacity, this would be the last clean water SRF loan for stormwater coming forward, unless there was a vote of the people to increase the storm drain revenue fund. Again, the estimated cost is $23.8 million, and the loan cap provides room for future cost increases. If the principal forgiveness does not materialize or bids exceed estimates, alternative financing through WIFIA or general fund-backed loans would cover the remainder. So there's $27 million in proceeds available at 2% interest for the $22 million in loans at a 30-year term that goes from fiscal year 2030 to 2059. The current estimated debt service is $975,000 annually on the $22 million loan. Again, this is current. It could change in the future. The first payment would be in fiscal year 2030. Repayment only applies to actual draws. There is a debt service coverage component as well, and reserves are required in this loan. And then the Storm Drain Revenue Fund actually also pays for the operation and maintenance of these Choias projects. With that, we have the proposed actions on the screen, and I leave it up for any questions.
All right, thank you very much for the presentation. Clerk, please proceed with public testimony on S507.
Thank you, Council President. Aldo Mastro. Aldo Mastro, are you here? I think he has left. We are starting the 5-minute timer and going to those participating remotely, starting with the original. You'll have 2 minutes.
Yeah, it's crazy. There's a 150-year-old problem in the city, according to Jennifer Campbell, and you guys have a $5 billion storm infrastructure gap. And of course, we want to be spending money on that, but it's scary to think about if you guys are actually going to complete that, because money has always been, reallocated or diverted somewhere else, leading to the problems that have taken place. And, like with you guys getting into all these loans, obviously you're not going to be able to find that money under a rock, but it's like, how long is the city and the people going to be in debt due to the negligence of the city not keeping up with this infrastructure? I mean, it's like, if $5 billion is the gap, like how much more is that going to cost when you guys are getting into these loans, and how many years is that going to be? It's going to be another 150 years before the people even, see the other side of this. It's just really sad because so many places have been neglected, and so many people have lost, just their livelihoods because of the negligence and because of, storming happening. And if they're going to continue to do this geoengineering, which they will, because it fits perfectly into your guys' climate change agenda, then there's going to be absolutely more and more storms. And I don't even know how we're even going to be able to keep up with what's coming down the pike. And, I don't know, it's just really sad because there's so much malfeasance and mismanagement that goes on that it's really hard to trust that you guys are going to really utilize this and make sure that, because Choias Creek, I mean, it's like, isn't that part of the promise zone? And all these promise zones have actually been left behind. So hopefully you're actually going to be doing what needs to be done here, and this money's going to be spent where it is being allocated to. But again, it's a big fear of thinking about, what kind of money this is going to cost the people because of, mismanagement that's already taken place. It's terrifying
Your
to think about.
time has concluded. Bate, if you can please unmute. Bate, I can't unmute for you. A pop-up should have come up. There you go.
I should have said John Brady. Sorry about that. I am trying to reach you to talk about stormwater drainage. And basically, I wanted to say we're looking at stormwater as a problem as opposed to an opportunity. And for example, I used to live on Rose Canyon, and we if we were able to block off that canyon itself, we could flood it during high periods of rain or whenever there's an intense storm, and then allow that water to seep into our watershed. And I suspect that by looking at canyons that way throughout the region, we probably could slow down water substantially, as opposed to focusing on having it rush out to the sea so that we can evaporate it into drinkable water through pure water. Thank you.
Thank you. 8700, if you can please unmute. 8700, thank you.
Thank you, City Clerk Fuentes. John Brady, thank you. That was a wonderful example of seizing the opportunity if it's possible. I really appreciated that. That was good for our city. Okay, so I love the words clean water. And Chollas Creek, I don't even know Chollas Creek, but yet I love Chollas Creek because I have listened for so many, it seems like years, having people speak up to protect and you know, enjoy Chollas Creek, the nature of it and everything. So I was really happy to see those words, Chollas Creek, included. I know it is broader than that, but it was great to see that. So thank you, public, for fighting for and protecting Chollas Creek. So I love the principle of forgiveness of $5 million from the state, and we'll keep our fingers crossed so that, you know, like a grant, hope there won't be required matching funds. I don't think so. So not with forgiveness. So that's good news, and I really like the fact that it sounds like you have a plan for, you know, all results as to what happens with the resources of funding, and, you know, what route you'll have to take, what the opportunities are in case the grant, the forgiveness loan, is not coming forward. So this is a great item to end the day with, and it was, I think that was the last item. But thank you, everybody. Hey, we're in this together, aren't we? And, you know, everything is just supposed to be there. And it's unfolding, and we're meeting it, and we're doing our best, and we're doing better. So thank you, everybody, and love to all.
Thank you. The 5-minute timer did conclude. We have 2 speakers in the queue. No additional speakers will be taken. Tony, if you can proceed with your comments.
Hi, thank you, City Council. I just wanted to thank Bates, who spoke earlier. What he said was really brilliant about kind of viewing stormwater, instead of viewing stormwater as problematic, viewing it from the perspective that it's something beneficial that can help with landscaping, that can help replenish our aquifers, that can help replenish our water table. I think that we have so much stormwater that becomes a problem because we don't have enough water collection throughout the city. I did hear about a program and met an individual that worked for a department, I forget which department it was, that actually had grants for issuing some of these water collection tanks. But I think having more of them throughout the city would be really beneficial. Looking into like permaculture, looking into hugelkultur mounds, looking into different ways that we can absorb stormwater naturally. And really what it comes down to is the fundamental understanding that we have to choose if we want to have a society that's powered, I guess, or essentially maneuvered with concrete, you know, concrete street tops, concrete parking lots, or if we want to have a bioorganic one where we can absorb some of that stormwater with more plants and trees planted throughout the city. Now, it's also a question of like management of trees, and, you know, there's issues of like branches falling and lawsuits resulting from like tree branches falling and hitting people. And I know that that's often cited as an excuse to not have more trees or to cut down the few trees that we have. But as the planet's getting hotter, and, you know, we've just had like the hottest March on record in like 120 years, it's becoming apparent that we need more trees. We need to make a precious, valuable use of our stormwater and treat it as such and not be discarding it. So I appreciate that comment earlier, and I implore all of you to look into this further.
Thank you. And our final speaker is 8813. If you can please unmute. You are unmuted.
Okay, Consuelo here, and yes, yep, Consuelo here, and I love the enthusiasm of that previous caller, and but it's unfortunate that people don't realize what is happening within, for example, having the warmest March ever. It's, that's all by design. That's all being controlled, whether people want to acknowledge it or not. It truly is. Look into that. It's called geoengineering. Tune into your CARB meetings, especially if you're really interested, for the previous caller. What else did I want to say? Yeah, and as far as like the whole planting the trees and having more trees and cooling down the planet again, yeah, that's great. But the goal is to eliminate the carbon, right? So that's contributes to it. So yeah, everything is backwards, as Audra mentions. It's so inverted, and there really is an agenda at hand. And our contribution, the things that we have to say, the great ideas that people have, just go down the toilet, because essentially in the end, they do not work for us. Reminder, they work for the globalists. So happy awakening to all. I love you, San Diego. I'm done.
Thank you. That concludes public comment on this item.
All right, thank you, City Clerk. And with that, we'll turn over to the council for questions, comments, and entertain a motion. We'll start with Council Member Elo Rivera.
How you doing? This is a good thing. This is a good thing. A community that should have more investment in its infrastructure is getting more investment in its infrastructure. We're moving from gray, boring, depressing, old, outdated to green, vibrant, healthy. This is good. We should say so. I am glad that this is happening. I motion to approve staff recommendation.
All right, thank you, Council Member Elo Rivera. So we have a motion to move the staff recommendation. We'll go next to Council Member Von Wilpert.
Thank you very much, and I'm happy to second the motion and echo Councilor Elo Rivera's comment that this is very good. In fact, at the risk of telling everyone what nerds we are, Councilor Elo Rivera and I often text each other pictures of green infrastructure when we see them in other cities, which makes me ask the question, could we have put more pictures in this presentation for the public, especially if this is 100% design phase completed, explaining to folks like me about what a modular wetland stormwater system is. It would be very helpful to have more photos for everybody, because it's a success story. We're getting money to do an important job for the environment. So that would be my request for the future. And can you tell me more about the modular wetlands?
We have some colleagues from Stormwater that are online right now. They can come and tell you what the wetlands are.
Hi, Council Member. This is Sarah from City of San Diego Stormwater Department. So the modular wetland is a type of the water quality component that allows the runoff and rainfall to infiltrate within the engineered water quality system to filter out the pollutant from the rainfall before discharging to our water body. And it's kind of like it's filled up with the different types of the material, combination of the sands and mulch and different type of the media layer. And it's planted on the top, so it's underground, and then on the surface you will see the planting that collecting the runoff. We can definitely just send a good schematic of the module wetland to you just for the better understanding.
Yeah, I'd be happy to. We're missing an opportunity for the public to also get excited about modular wetland systems. And so I just thank you. This is great work. In the future, I'd love to have people more engaged in this, because we have seen catastrophic flooding in San Diego, and this is going to meet our climate action goals. This is also going to help reduce untreated wastewater into our oceans. And this is such a good news item, and I just feel we could celebrate it even more. So thank you for the good work. I'm seconding the motion and glad to see this is getting off the ground.
All right, thank you. So we have a motion by Councilmember Elo Rivera and a second by Councilmember Von Wilpert. Clerk, please call the roll.
I've started the voting system. Please cast your vote. That passes unanimously 8-0 with Councilmember Moreno absent. Thank you.
All right, thank you, and thank you for the good work in bringing that item forward. All right, today we have 2 adjournments in memory, and we'll go to Councilmember Foster first. Sir?
Yes, thank you. Council President, give a quick moment for the slide presentation to be uploaded. There you go. Ready? All right, thank you. Again, thank you, Council President. With great respect, we adjourn today's meeting in memory of Alwyn Ben Holman, a Navy veteran, trailblazer, and leader whose life reflected service, perseverance, and strength. Mr. Holman passed away on April 3rd, 2026. His life was celebrated this past Saturday, April 11th, surrounded by loved ones and those who carry forward his legacy. Mr. Holman was born in Alton, Illinois on December 26, 1925. He came to San Diego while serving in the United States Navy during World War II. This city became home, a place where he would leave a lasting mark. After his military service, he continued serving others as a mail carrier and later as a firefighter with the San Diego Fire Department. At a time when doors were closed to many, Mr. Holman stepped forward and helped open them. He became the first black firefighter in San Diego assigned outside of Station 19, breaking through a system that had long limited opportunity. That moment mattered, not just for him, but for every firefighter who came after him. Because of his courage, San Diego's fire department began to change. Because of his presence, others were able to see what was possible. And because of his leadership, a stronger and more inclusive department took shape. He went on to serve with distinction for nearly 3 decades, rising through the ranks to become the city's first black deputy fire chief, retiring in 1983, leaving behind a legacy of excellence and determination. When we recognize Mr. Holman right here in these chambers on his 100th birthday, we celebrated a life that mirrored the progress of our city. A life defined not only by personal achievement, but by the opportunities he helped create for others. And that impact did not stop within the fire service. It extended across industries, across generations, and across this entire city. For Black San Diegans especially, his life stands as proof of what is possible. And I can say personally, as I sit in this seat today, that legacy is not lost on me. Beyond his career, Mr. Holman was devoted to his family. He shared 71 years of marriage with his wife, Ruby, and leaves behind a family who cared for him, supported him, and now carry his legacy forward. His life reminds us that real change is built over time, through persistence, through service, and through the courage to stand where others have not been given the chance. On behalf of the 4th Council District, I extend my deepest condolences to the Holman family. May we honor his legacy by continuing the work of opening doors and creating opportunity. Rest in power, Mr. Holman, and this concludes my comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Foster. And now Councilmember Von Wilpert.
It's going to be hard. Excuse me. Thank you, Council President, and thank you, Henry, for those beautiful words about Ben Holman. It was wonderful to have him here in Chambers recently. Today, we are also adjourning our April 14, 2026 City Council meeting in memory of Alex Samantha Libby. You can bring up the slideshow, please.
I apologize, Councilmember. It did go up for a second, and then it seemed to glitch. There we go.
Thank you. On September 26, 1991, the world was introduced to Alex Samantha Libby. To know Alex was to feel welcomed and loved. She loved all people, and all the people loved her. It's true. Alex lived with intention. She found joy in the simple things that many of us take for granted. She reminded us to watch the sunrises and the sunsets, to go to the beach, to have meaningful conversations with friends, and she spent so much time with her family. Her circle of friends and family, those she was born into and those she chose along the way, we're so blessed to have her in our lives for 34 years. After graduating from SDSU, she ultimately found her way to working for her sister, Kim Miller, at Miller Public Affairs as a senior account executive. She loved working in public affairs. She loved coming to City Hall. She loved working with many of us in this building. And it turns out she loved organizing speakers in this chambers and making public comments. So bless her. In her role at MPA, Alex was honored to be a part of the efforts that helped improve the lives of others throughout the San Diego community. In addition, she volunteered. She supported and engaged various organizations in her public affairs work, including ODI, the San Diego and Imperial Labor Council's annual dinner. She did food drives and toy drives for others. She participated with the San Diego Futures Foundation, the City Heights CDC, the San Diego Fire Rescue Foundation, and one of her favorites, she always participated in drives for Lincoln High School. Alex Libby was the loveliest daughter, sister, auntie, niece, sister-in-law, cousin, and friend. Cancer inevitably took her life, but when she met it with the same strength she met that cancer with the same strength she displayed when she entered the world only 34 years ago. And here's a quote from C.S. Lewis. We'll always remember her. Her absence is like the sky. It spreads over everything, but it's always there. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Councilmember Von Wolpert. We'll miss both of them. With that, we would now adjourn council to the next regularly scheduled council meeting on Monday, April 20th, 2026 at 10 a.m.